day, good afternoon, good whenever it is you are watching this. Thank you very much for watching this. You are checking out kind of a review of sorts of different records from a few artists that I very much respect who have released new records in the last couple of weeks that I think are worth your time, that I think you should give a listen to, and perhaps even give them some of your money if you deem them worthy. All right, so the first record I'm going to talk about is Charismatic Disrespect. It comes from East Coast, New York, Brooklyn. Or is he from Queens? I don't know. I don't exactly know where he's from. I know he's from New York. It's a big place, and he is a big man in the scene, Mr. Eff Yoo, and a guy who is very big in the hip-hop scene out of Dallas, now I believe in Austin, probably somewhere in Texas, I would assume, Rob Viktum. These two guys have the two coolest names in music. If you thought, your favorite band's name was cool when you found out it had like some cool thing meaning behind it, it's probably cool. But it's not as cool as FU or Rob Viktum. Those names are just cool as shit. So the name for their record could only be Charismatic Disrespect. And I'll be honest with you, it's like a very funny action movie. Rob Viktum provides a background that is dark. It's a very, very dark sound. And one of the very cool things that he is able to do as a producer is he's able to make original sounds sound very much like samples, and he goes into that on his Instagram page. So if you're on Instagram, highly recommend you follow him, especially if you make beats, if you care about how beats are made in the electronic music universe, EDM. If you want to make cool drum and bass music, you could probably learn a really cool, useful thing from Rob Viktum's Instagram page. That's all I'm saying. If you are a stand-up comedian and you want to be better at saying funny shit, you don't really need to stan Anthony Jeselnik. You can stan FU and learn some really, really cool, tools, like saying funny, mean shit with confidence. My God. FU is the New York version, and I don't even know if Don Rickles was from New York. I have no idea where that man was from, but FU might be related to him in some way, shape, or form. I wouldn't be surprised, and I wouldn't be upset if I found out that somewhere down the line he's like FU's uncle. That would make perfect sense to me. But again, if you like Don Rickles, if you like Anthony Jeselnik, if you like George Carlin, you'll really like what FU has to say and the way he has to say it. Now, if you are someone who listens to Griselda, well, good for you. Rob Viktum has produced for Conway the Machine. But he is a really, really awesome producer who has a sound that is very distinct from what you would typically think of when you listen to Griselda, when you listen to an Alchemist beat, when you go down that sort of organ sound. Man, it's hard to explain because Rob Viktum has a lot of different sounds, and I haven't heard FU over this sound before, but it gives him time to really breathe. That's it. That's how I'll say it. Rob Viktum creates a space for FU to breathe on beats, to create space to walk away from it. And he comes in and he goes out, and he has 5 or 6 different flows, maybe in one verse. Really technical guy, and he does it at a pace that is very unique. Now, on the podcast a couple weeks ago, I had the opportunity to sit down with Young Hump of Digital Underground, and he was talking about Saphir. And he said that Saphir, I'm going to butcher it a little bit, but he said that Saphir had a flow like a jazz player, right? Like a trumpet player, like Miles Davis, where he can just kind of come and go with it. And FU is very much like that. But he's always saying something, and generally it's really funny or mildly terrifying. Listen, if you laughed at any scene in Inglourious Bastard where someone died, you're going to laugh at this album. You're going to have a really good time listening to it. That's just my opinion. I will leave a link in the description to Rob Viktum's Bandcamp page. If you like the record, you can purchase it there for $7 or more if you really like it. And you can send it to a gift to someone that you like or that you don't like, but you want to just get them a gift because, you know what? I want someone to do to you what Eff Yoo does to whoever he's talking to on a lot of these songs. Because he's beating the shit out of people. He's hurting some people. All right, it's a great record. Give it a listen, and then check out their respective discographies. I believe they're both very much worth your time to dive down. The next record that we are going to talk about is The Fragility of Life from East Coast staple Wordsworth and producer from the UK that I have never heard of before, Kells with the Heat. Now, the last album that we discussed, Charismatic Disrespect, clocked it at around 22 minutes. This record clocks in at a little bit closer to 40, but you can get through both of these records in an hour. Now, Wordsworth is a top 10 selling author on Amazon, What Words Are Worth Volume 1. He's also on Netflix's animated series Peabody and Sherman. This album itself doesn't sound like his music from the 90s. His stuff with Black Star, his stuff with the Tribe Called Quest, or any of his stuff from the Lyricist Lounge, whether it was the show or any of the records. This album, it sounds very much like a traditional boom bap record made by someone who is not a traditional boom bap producer. Maybe I'm saying that wrong. But Kells with the Heat does records, or is making a record here. At least I'm not familiar enough with his work. But he made a record here that feels comfortable to folks that listen to some of those aforementioned artists. Folks like Black Star, Tribe Called Quest. If you like that sort of thing, then Kells with the Heat does a very good job of combining traditional boom bap with a lot of new tools that you're going to hear in more contemporary mainstream hip hop. Now, with that said, this sounds like a record that could very easily cross over. I hate to use that term, but only because it's good. Only because I think it's a record people should hear. So it's interesting that one of the collaborators on this record, Experience, has collaborated with Macklemore. But it's interesting to me because that first Ryan Lewis and Macklemore record had a sense of urgency to it throughout it from the beginning to end. And this record does as well. This record is the opposite of that very first Macklemore record. It's the East Coast opposite of that. It is it's a well-respected artist on the East Coast who has made a record right here that people should hear, and not just because he's collaborating with Irv Ford or Masta Ace, who is one of the, historically speaking, one of the most important rappers to come from the East Coast. That's another rabbit hole you need to go down. But the record feels like collaborations with artists that you've probably never heard of, but it's going to open up some new chapters to you. Like, I don't know who Danae or Sade are, but I'm going to, if I said their names right, I'm going to check them out. I'm definitely going to dive into Pearl Gates because I think Thank God for Waking Up is a song that a lot of people really need to hear. Same with the Teacher song. For the same reasons, Charismatic Disrespect is a record that you need to listen to. Actually, for the exact opposite. Like, one of these records is for you to laugh at and have a good time. The other one is for you to appreciate life at. So really just sit back and listen to and just motivate yourself. Maybe you haven't heard that first fitness record from not M1, Stickman from Dead Prez. He did a couple of fitness records, and they're very, very motivational. This is like that, but not for workout, for like the rest of your life. All right? Don't be good, be great. Great song. Thank God for waking up. Great song. The Teacher song. My wife's a teacher. Played it for her. She lost her mind. It was like someone was speaking to her. You know, like, why you do this? Why you do the thing that you do? Great song. Highly recommend it. He's got some lines, and I've reached out to him, and he said he's down to come on the podcast, and there are some lyrics. There are lyrics on this album that you're going to walk around with questions with, you know, or questions for. You're going to hear some of these lines, and I don't want to paraphrase them and butcher them, but he has one line about getting a passport and leaving the United States, and I thought it was very, very poignant. But what I got from that might be something completely different from what he meant by that. But that's where you're open to have these discussions with an artist like Wordsworth. And I think that a lot of these discussions are things that need to happen. He also makes songs that make being a dad sound kind of cool. Like the line about drowning in a carpool. Important, very dope line. If you have kids, then you understand how important legroom is. All right? It makes sense. Now, he made a really, really good record here with Fragility of Life. Man, woman, other, child, grandparent. Give a listen to Fragility of Life from Wordsworth with Kells on the Heat. Kells with the Heat. I apologize, man. I'm just gonna say Kells with the Heat, and one word: Kells with the Heat. Kelz with the Heat. One word. All right, it's gonna be down at the very bottom. Those both of these records, Fragility of Life and Charismatic Disrespect, available now across streaming platforms. Give them a listen, share them with your loved ones. Check the links in the description so you can purchase these records if you feel the need to purchase this record. All right, going through Wordsworth's Bandcamp page, he's an alumni of the University of Masters, the State University of New York. He's got a master's in language arts. This dude probably has some student loans that he's got to pay off. So it would probably do him a great solid favor if you bought the record, because student loans are a mother lover. You know, and yeah, sorry, man. If you got student loans, those things can really, really jack you up. And interesting enough, one of the topics on the record. So there you go. Just this record covers a lot of ground. Give it a listen. It's about 37 minutes long. Again, you can listen to both of these records in an hour. If you live on the Kenai Peninsula, your commute is roughly 20 minutes. Listen one way, finish listening to one the other way, and have a good time with it. These are both very, very good records, both worth your time, both worth your energy. Have a great night, have a great afternoon, have a great morning, have a great whenever it is you are watching this, listening to this. Thank you very much for either one of those.